Right. One, two, three. We're here with Casey Adams. Thank you for joining us, Casey. It's Michael hosting this podcast. Ian is unable to join this one, but I wanted to take this, and of course do it with you. I've been looking at you for some time, Casey. I was just going to mention that to you prior to this, but I wanted to just dive into it as mentioned, but I've seen you, man, for real, for a few years. Yeah. And I'd love to, dive in with you. So what's going on? How are you?
Yeah, well, Michael, thanks so much for having me on the show, man. Huge fan of the brand and everything that you've built, and I've been super excited to come on this show, and more importantly, super excited that you guys are launching the show. I think that just seeing how you guys have continued to grow and to know that you're doing the podcast now, it makes me super pumped up and excited to be here.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. So, yeah, Casey, I want to ask so much stuff like, what's the story? I see all these amazing things you're doing. Firstly, it's absolutely amazing, as I was just alluding to. I've been seeing you for some years. I appreciate those kind words coming from you. But I mean, really, like, I'd say like 3-4 years ago, I first saw you coming on the scene. I know you've been working hard for quite some time, as a young man too. It's crazy how young you are and how much you're doing and achieving, how mature and like just everything. Just from afar, it's absolutely incredible. But with your show, and then you've written books, you have quite a bunch of things going on. You speak, you're really excellent at social in all apps. I feel like you're very well connected. Everyone speaks highly of you. Let's say I know a lot of other, let's say reputable guys, right, and women,
Yeah.
and everyone speaks so highly of you, man. So what's the real story? Who is Casey Adams? If you could give me the scoop, like where you're from, how are you, like what
Yeah.
made you this amazing person? For real,
Yeah, man.
I'm not even gassing you up, man. It's really truly awesome. I've looked into you. And
Thank you.
it's different. It's cool.
I really appreciate that, man. Quite the intro, and again, I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, man, it's been quite the journey, right? So I'm 22 years old right now, and really, I got into this whole world of business and entrepreneurship when I was 15, 16, sort of by accident. And what really happened was, well, let me take a step back. I'm born and raised in a small town in Virginia. I grew up the youngest brother of three, played sports my entire life, played hockey for 10 years. That's really what gave me this innate, passion towards team building and excelling was sports. And I think a lot of athletes or former athletes have spoken about that in different interviews
Yes,
and just
yes. That's a
life.
trait or a discipline that's getting naturally kind of built, yeah, through that experience.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And then into middle school, high school, I started playing lacrosse, which I played for 6 years. And then sophomore year of high school, I was playing football. And, it was one of those moments that I reflect on that in the moment and I'm about to share what happened. I didn't really see it as, a life-changing moment, but looking back, it was just the pivoting point that changed everything for me. So it was the first day of hitting practice where, the whole team's putting on their pads, you're going head to head, you're actually tackling people on the team. And it's like the fun stuff, right? When you're playing football.
Yeah.
So the first day of practice, I ended up getting injured. And what happened was it was this drill one-on-one with an opponent, and 3 2 1 whistle blows and your goal is to take down your opponent.
Yeah.
And I ended up landing on my back / neck wrong, and in the moment I just had this excruciating pain in my neck. And this wasn't an injury that immediately I was rushed to the hospital, but I wake up the next morning and I can barely move my head. I'm in excruciating pain. And that's when my mom ends up taking me to the doctor. And, as a 15-year-old at the
I was just going
time,
to say, you're 15 right now at this moment.
yeah,
Okay.
I was 15
Yeah.
when this happened. And being, like a optimistic, positive 15-year-old kid, I was like, okay, my neck hurts. I've had injuries before, nothing crazy severe like this would turn into. But I thought I was be good back on the field in a couple of weeks. But I go to the doctor's office, get an X-ray. I'm waiting in the room, and the doctor comes in. It's just my mom and I, and he says, "I have good news and I have bad news for you. Good news is you're not paralyzed and you're obviously walking and you can, live a great life and not be in a wheelchair,
That's
which
good
is
news,
great
of
news, but
course.
kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting
Yeah,
that.
you were like, wait, but what else? I feel your
Yeah.
vibes. Okay.
Yeah. The
Sheesh.
bad news is you have to be in a neck brace for just about 6 months, depending on how you recover. You're diagnosed with interspinous ligament damage, and you can never play football again due to the
What is it called?
instability.
What is it called?
Interspinous ligament damage.
And what if I were to Google it? Like, what's the initial, like, quick definition, if you could, for
Yeah,
anyone
so
or myself?
I'm not a doctor. I'm
Yeah,
not a doctor, right? But at a high level, right? Like on our spine, we have the outer spinous ligament and then the inner spinous ligament. The outer spinous ligament, you can a lot of people tear like just doing the turning their neck wrong, sleeping on it wrong. It's like
yeah,
you can
yeah.
tear that. And it's very micro tears. Again, don't quote me on this, but then the inner spinous ligament is usually never touched. And what happened was my helmet, the doctor said, guillotined my spine, where the helmet sort of just
Uh,
separated two of my vertebrae more than
yeah,
they, should be.
yeah.
And it caused like from that injury down and up, like I couldn't turn my head. I really couldn't do anything for
That's
a
insane.
handful of
Wow.
months
So
in
you had
terms
to
of
break you had to wear a neck brace for 6 months.
yeah,
Wow.
I was
That's
sleeping in it.
quite
The only
heavy.
time I didn't wear it was in the shower, which was like a hard time because then I had to like hold up my head and be very
Like
careful.
that, right? Almost.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
so
exactly.
so okay, so this was a pivotal moment. I'm catching you, I'm feeling you as you're saying it. You're 15. This is pretty serious. The neck brace for 6 months, that's like very kind of that's a lot. So what happened in this moment? What's going through your mind during this type of like moment? Because I feel you, I get where you're going, and I want to know. Like that kind of like
For
makes you
sure.
think everything changes in a sense, right? Is this what kind of
Ab-
happened?
Absolutely. It's for me when that all happened, again, like I said, I didn't realize how big of a moment that it was for me, right? Like I'm young, I go to the doctor, I hear this news, I go home, and initially I'm just pissed off, right? I'm pissed off at the world, I'm pissed off at my parents for
What
no
is that?
reason.
Like 10th grade, 8th grade, ninth
Yeah,
grade,
so yeah, 10th grade, sophomore
10th
year
grade,
of
right?
school.
Shit.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'm just, I'm pissed off because I'm an athlete and you train all these years, all this time, and I'm about to go start my sophomore year in high school, my season, and I'm literally told you can never play football again, just instantly.
Yeah.
And I think for me, like looking back, what happened in that moment was, I really had my identity just taken away from me, right? Like we all have this sense of identity of who we are and what we do and what we're great at and, what we do on a day-to-day basis. And I just had this idea and reputation as an athlete, initially just taken away from me. And, luckily I did recover well. And, nowadays I can snowboard and do all the activities and run half
Thank God. I
marathons
was gonna
and do the whole
ask you like,
thing.
how is it now? You seem fine, but I mean, it's not like you're running in front of me. But
Yeah.
you're good now? It healed the right way after that period of time. Just to even
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Word.
It definitely healed well, but it is one of those things that, like, the doctor told me it was like, yeah, you'll probably always have issues
Yeah.
or maybe
Like
pains here and there. And
yeah. Don't forget it
yeah,
entirely. Keep it somewhat top of mind. Like this did happen, but yeah,
yeah.
crazy.
Like
Word.
I'm not the person that learning how to do a backflip
That yeah.
isn't my
Yeah.
thing that I should go do.
Yeah. I hear
Um,
you. I hear you.
but
Okay.
overall, like I'm great and it recovered well. I run a lot. I'm active. I work out,
Yeah.
and I definitely get pain quite frequently, like every now and then if I try to push it. But overall, I'm good
You're
and
good.
grateful.
So now this like kind of stripped your identity. What did this do to you in this moment? Because that's like a big thing in that time too. You're kind of like finding yourself in a way too. Like I'm picturing that age when I was that age. Like it's like, wait, I kind of like think I want to play sports for almost ever, or you're almost like trying to like forever your path, right? In a sense, you're trying to find your way.
Yeah,
So what happened
absolutely.
when this happened to you?
Yes. So
Mhm.
it it initially, again, I was mad, I was pissed at the world, and then slowly but surely it sort of shifted to this mindset of really having a blank slate. I was at home, it was the summer, I was in a neck brace, I was in my bed, had nothing to do, couldn't do anything. And that's when I really started spending a lot of time on my phone. on
Okay.
social media, consuming content, just watching content as a consumer that has no idea really like what social media has to offer, or wanting to go learn about that whole
Yeah. And
space.
this is
But
what, 2018, 2017,
uh,
16,
it was
18,
like
19,
2016.
16, 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're on the
So
phone. Mhm.
yeah, so I'm on my phone, and that's really when I got opened up to this whole world of business and entrepreneurship. Again, like I said previously, by accident, where I stumbled upon a video by Gary Vaynerchuk and Tony Robbins, and then Ty Lopez, and all these different entrepreneurs that are putting out content online, and really just went down their rabbit hole, right? Like really started consuming all of what they were talking about, learned about personal branding and social media marketing and just entrepreneurship as a whole, and really started not
Yeah.
only consuming content, but I mean, as you can see if you're watching this video, all these books in the background,
I was gonna
just
ask you, are those
find
all books? And they're so
yeah,
well
like
organized. Awesome.
that's
I love it. I'm like that too, bro. I'm like low key. I'm not OCD, but I'm like so organized with my staff too. Like I like everything done and like
yeah,
well, executed, etc. But okay,
absolutely.
yeah,
But yeah, I start buying a bunch of books. I'm getting all these book recommendations. I, picked up the book Think and Grow Rich, Think and Grow Rich, The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success. Um, all of these books
rich
that
dad,
have
poor dad. I'm
impacted
sure.
me.
I thought that was
Yeah,
gonna
Rich
be the
Dad.
next one you going with. 'Cause that's
Yeah,
one of
Rich
those.
Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, all the books that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a lot of people stumble across, and it was really during that 6 month period where coming into it, I was again pissed off, angry, and then coming out of it, I was inspired and curious, and that really led me down this path of me going out there and trying to put out content and do book reviews on social media, learning about Facebook advertising and really what that is. And I was sort of in this perfect period of my life where, when you're 16, a lot of 16-year-old kids, you have your parents saying, go get a job, go start making money,
This is where I'm
right?
going at right now. I'm listening to you, but I want to ask you this. But answer it. You may even say it without me saying it. I want to listen. So go ahead. So most
Yeah.
because they're not doing what you're doing. What made you as a 15-year-old kid naturally interested in looking into Tony Robbins, which is amazing. Like I'm happy to say I had that kind of trait in a sense, but I had to nurture it in my own ways. But I want to ask you, of course, what made you
Yeah.
interested like this? Do you come from like, are your family like entrepreneurs, or did they like kind of like always have this type of vibe or energy or conversation floating in and around the household, or is there an environment or a mentor
I,
that kind of, because like a 15-year-old kid that gets hurt, they're playing PlayStation 5 or something, you know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so and you're like studying Tony Robbins. What do you feel like drove you this direction? I'm so curious, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. And I wish I could say it was my environment, but that'd be the farthest thing from the truth. I grew up in a small town, and with incredible parents. My mom's been a special ed teacher for the last 12 years, and she was a babysitter when I was growing up. And
Okay.
then my dad, he's worked at a tobacco company, Philip Morris, for 30 plus years. And I didn't really know what being an entrepreneur meant at all growing up. I was never surrounded by them. I wouldn't say I had a lot of like successful people around me in terms of like maybe financial wealth, right? Like my family and all my friends were incredible people. And then, I will always make sure I say that because my environment was always filled with love and positivity, and just being there. Like my mom and my dad and my brothers, like we grew up
Yeah.
in a great space and family environment, but thinking about money and like assets and building businesses and all these different concepts that I was very unaware of, like that was never talked about growing up. So really what drove me to Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, I think one, just my natural curiosity of being ambitious and wanting more in life. And then two, I whenever I would get asked in school growing up, like, what do you want to do when you grow up? Sometimes they give you a little scantron. It's like fill in the circles, and
Yeah.
innately, I'd always just fill out like business or like self-employed. Like that was always my
Okay.
mindset, but I truthfully didn't know what it really meant. I never had a clear path of I want to go be a doctor. I want to go do marketing. I want to go do this. I want to go do that. It was just for me, it was like, I'm an athlete, I'm ambitious, and this curiosity of business and wanting more and being ambitious and wanting a grand life has always been like deep down what I wanted. So I think like the timing of being able to now pursue that and go down that path with all this free time of not being an
Okay.
athlete, getting home from school, going to school, getting home, doing homework, like it's just like, you
Yes.
get on the
The
you get
equation
on the
aligned for
schedule.
you. It aligned for you at
Yeah.
this moment. So you naturally felt like this. That's awesome. That's cool to hear. I was
Yeah.
curious. You had this innate type of like, trait, let's say again, characteristic, right? So then this moment just kind of aligned. So now you're deep diving into the Gary V's in this period of your life, 15, 6 month gap. You have this time to really focus in and you're able to zone in on this. So you got Gary Vee, all these guys, the books, everything you just mentioned is perfect. I'm sure a lot of value. So now what happened from there when you started to absorb, clear? Now what in terms of like putting it into action?
Yeah.
What happened? Well,
Yeah, so
where's the Casey Adams in terms of actually establishing that brand name and putting this into action, what you're absorbing during this period?
yeah, these are great questions, by the way. I'm having so much fun here.
I love this, man. This is like the highlight of my days. I'm a
I
media guy
love
and
it.
I do a bunch of things, but I like can't wait for these moments. I've been thinking about this
Yeah,
since like yesterday. I'm a geek when it
love
comes to this stuff. I love
it.
absorbing. I think you are too. You love this stuff, right?
Yeah,
You're not a
man.
geek. You're not a geek at all. I'm saying you love to absorb the stuff, all love. All
Yeah,
love.
I'm a geek in my own way for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but what really happened was I became obsessed with just trying new things and learning by doing, right? So coming out of these 6 months, I again started putting out content on social media, mainly Instagram and Snapchat. I was building this Snapchat community because it
Okay.
was easy and quick and like things deleted in 24 hours and it was quick and easy. And I found these Snapchat groups where I started doing a lot of these book reviews on social media. That led to me just being obsessed with trying to build a brand, put out content.
Hmm.
Um, and then slowly but surely, I was kind of starting to build an audience. And there was one person that inspired me when I was 15 that we're still friends to this day. His name's Caleb Maddox. He
Okay.
he was 14 at the time. He was like an author of 6 books. He spoke on stage with Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, all these characters. And he was 14, 15 years old.
Yes, yes.
And
I
I
feel
remember
like I've
seeing
seen
him.
him in and around, maybe on your channel when I floated
Yeah.
you some years ago. Okay. Quite an amazing
So
young man.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's incredible, and like seeing what he was doing not only inspired me, but we ended up getting connected on social, and he was really one of the first people that just opened my eyes to what's possible at such a young age, and that led to him inviting me to come speak at this event in San Diego in early 2017, and this was like a pivoting point for me as well, where I was putting out content for 3, 4, 5, 6 months.
Yeah.
Caleb ends up this opportunity to come out to San Diego, and then I was faced with um, sort of like a wall of like a barrier where I grew up in a place where I never traveled on an airplane until I bought the ticket myself. My None of my family has been to California. I have no family out there. So me going to my parents at 16 at the time saying, "Hey, I want to go to California and speak on this like social media
Yeah.
panel about
Oh,
Snapchat marketing at a young age,"
yeah.
completely left field, right? Like I'm in my bedroom doing my thing. My parents don't really know what's going on. I'm just like pursuing this new world.
Yeah. Yeah. I can
And
imagine.
I end up booking my dad and to I end up paying for the flights for my dad and I to go to San Diego because I was doing some affiliate marketing on my Snapchat channel. I was starting to make some money and like, some commissions, all that stuff.
Okay.
And I just went all in on that, and that gave me the opportunity to buy my dad and I 2 tickets to San Diego. Um, and
That's
then
awesome.
at
He was
this
probably
event,
hyped, right? He's never been there.
yeah, that was his first time in
That's
California.
cool.
It was like a super cool moment.
Yeah.
And from there, I met all these awesome people at that event. And then coming back home from that event, I ended up reaching out to Ty Lopez because I was following his programs and social media, all
Okay.
that stuff.
Yes. And that year
And
he was like viral right then. Like he was everywhere, I feel like, at that moment.
yeah, that was like peak
Yeah.
for where he was putting his time and attention on social.
Yeah.
Um, and this is just a blip of the whole story. And I know we're still talking about the early aspects, but from that
Oh, I
moment,
love this. Yeah. I love it. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
So Ty, I ended up reaching out to him, just pretty much saying like, hey, like last year I was in a neck brace, super depressed, not sure what I wanted to do with my life. Now I just got back from this event. I met some incredible entrepreneurs. Just want to say thank you for, inspiring me and helping me learn all this social media stuff. Just sent him like a message of gratitude. And
Yeah.
then he was like, awesome to hear. You should come out to LA and shoot a video with me. Like, text me. So then we ended up just texting, and 2 weeks later, he's flying my mom and I out to LA. First
Get
time
out.
ever going out to LA.
That's
My
so
mom and
cool.
I, my mom and I go out there. He puts us up in a hotel. We're, shooting content for his, like more so like testimonials for all this stuff, right?
Okay.
But it was from those two moments of back to back what I identify as momentum, right? Like these two
Yes.
opportunities that I found a way to get there. There was no other option. Showed up, that just sort of started this whole ball of momentum into 2017.
Mhm.
And towards the end of 2017, after meeting a lot of great people by like skipping school and going out to events in LA or New York, just convincing my parents to let me travel by myself to
Yeah.
go out to
Yeah.
these events. Finally, I started the podcast, and what really inspired the podcast was, again, I was young. I was starting to meet all these cool people, and I wanted a way where I could really not only build deeper relationships, but create content at scale and meet a
Yes.
lot
And
of
like
great people. Because
document these moments maybe, right? And put more value behind these types of moments in a sense. I can
yeah,
imagine. Yeah. If you're like
exactly, like
people.
quality conversations. And I read one of Gary Vee's books, and the last chapter was like about starting a podcast back in 2017. So I just jumped on it, and my first episode I recorded on a pair of Apple headphones in my bedroom, just walking around in a circle, like, welcome to episode 1 of Rise the Young, or now Casey
Yeah.
Adams
Yeah.
Show.
Yeah.
And I just
I,
uploaded it, and the momentum kept going, right? And for
that's
me, I had a goal. I wanted to do 60 interviews in 90 days. So I was like very ambitious with it. And then that sort of just allowed me to identify like, wow, I love doing this. Let's keep it going. And then, fast forward to now, I've had the show for, it'll be 5 years in December. I've done over 400 interviews with anyone
amazing.
from Larry King to Rick Ross to Elon Musk's mom and sister to the founders of Netflix and Twitch and like all these epic,
Yeah.
incredible people. And I say that not to say, oh, look at all these people I've had on my show, but
No, that's a
for
lot of
me,
work, man. You put in the work.
like,
It's awesome. It's all quality
thank you.
value. It's like all around awesome. Yeah.
For sure. And it's twofold. For me, it's number one, I wanted to build an incredible network, meet great people, learn a lot from them,
Yeah.
and just build an awesome network. And on the flip side, and this is more relevant to like where I am today and what's been happening in my life with Media Kits and my recent
Yeah. I want to ask
acquisition.
you about that media kits as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we get there, like the podcast, I always knew at 16, 17, 18 years old, I was like, hey, I want to go build an incredible network of people that, people that I trust, people that I can get in touch with, that trust me, that want to see me grow. So
Yeah.
then fast forward to 2021, and I'll kind of talk about Media Kits, and then we can go back into the origin story. But I always wanted to have this network to go, whether that's raise capital or establish partnerships or get in touch with whomever I believe could be valuable to me on a certain venture. So when we decided to raise money for Media Kits, 95% of our initial capital raise of like 1.5 million came from previous guests on my podcast. And it was
Wow.
like a direct correlation of how I've always thought about,
The network.
planting seeds, building relationships. And it was this true manifestation of not only why I was doing it, but the value of not only a podcast, but a podcast and an interview show and building a network and doing that over a sustained period of time. And
Yeah.
then executing on it with the right opportunity, it sort of came full circle. And that really allowed us to not only launch Media Kits, but have some incredible founders and entrepreneurs involved.
Yeah.
And it was quite the journey.
Absolutely awesome, man. And you're 22. You're 22. But I mean, what's a number today? Not belittling you, but there are like with the internet, kids like yourself, and I'm young too. I'm 30. It's not like I'm like 50, And I've
Yep.
used the internet, obviously,
Yeah.
as you know. We got 6 million followers on one account. Like we do it every day for 10 years. I get it.
Yeah.
I get the consistency, the discipline, right? But like it's so crazy to hear what you've done from that age, because that's even rarer. Like there's like one out of, it's so rare and it's just so awesome, man. to hear, you know, the persistence, and you just really gave it your all. You know, what would you say? And I want to dive into a few things, but, you know, what would you say to like a young person or anyone that's like, you know, I have these dreams, these ideas, but maybe didn't go through like a traumatic moment that gave them this kind of like eye to scope out and look a bit more abstractly at things or whatever. Not that that directly, you know, of course that assisted, that, you know, the other variables that you had, the desire to be the entrepreneur, all these other things were in line for you. But like, what would you say to someone that's just like, how did he have the confidence, you know, like the young man that's watching or young woman to like go and do that? Like, you know, what would you say to that person that's just like, I watched Gary Vee too, but, and I wanted to do the pod too at that last chapter, but didn't go do it. What comes top of mind to you to like, I'm just curious, what would you say to someone that like, you know, push them?
Yeah. That's a great question. You know, I think what it really came down to, especially for me, was one of two things. One, like a true obsession of seeing a potential outcome for myself, right? Like growing up in an environment where I had two older brothers, went to college, they dropped out, and I just didn't want to go down this traditional path because I felt like, you know, with social media, with all the opportunities today, there's just so much to do and there's so much opportunity that if you don't take action on it, like you're letting the opportunity pass right before your eyes. So for me, it was like being obsessed with this outcome by being inspired by others on social media and just truly living within that obsession of like, this is everything that I'm going to do. This is where I'm going to dedicate all of my time. You know, it wasn't easy. I remember being in high school and I ended up like cutting off all of my friends and people that I loved and cared about because I just, they weren't moving me forward. And I saw like a couple years ahead by being the youngest child of
You
two
saw
older
that
brothers of just
stagnancy, right? The
like
potential to
yeah, it's like
stagnant for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing, and not to say like and everyone can have that perspective. Maybe that's because I was the youngest child or whatever it may be. But just
Yes, yes.
if you're listening or watching this and you even have a drop of thought of like, wow, I could be more, like figure out how to shift more focus onto that. Because if you don't, it just starts becoming regret and regret and regret instead of the the optimism towards what you could be. And so I think that's one angle. And then on the flip side, I think it's just truly getting started and not caring about what other people think. I remember being, and my brother and I, we joke about this nowadays, but I remember being 15, 16 years old and my brothers are like, what are you doing? Like making selfie videos in your room and posting on Snapchat. No one cares. No one's watching. Why are you writing a book? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And, they were in, one of them was in like a bad space back then, like drugs. And he came and now he's a phenomenal golf creator. And I say that vulnerably because a lot of people that you may be around, they don't want to bring you down necessarily. It's just they're unaware of yeah, they're unaware of what they want, and it's a reflection of them that they're putting onto you. So for me, it's like if someone's young out there, the number one thing outside of those two that I just listed, that is sort of like the point of where I wanted to go, is surround yourself with people or influences that truly inspire you and that give you that perspective of what's possible, right? For me, and as we referenced earlier, all these books that I was reading, it wasn't that I was just surrounding myself with people in the real world 24/7, but the content I was consuming online, the videos I was watching, the books I was reading, all were positive and I was learning something, whether that's reading biographies about entrepreneurs or watching a video about how someone got their start. Maybe it was a podcast I was watching back then that someone's watching, this interview.
Consistent consumption of that media, the byproduct is going to put you in this type of mental position or reality, right?
Yeah, and I think it's like that's the first step is like what you said, like the mental position. But I think on the second hand, it's like true execution, right? Like everyone can read the same books, the same podcasts, everything. You're not going to do anything unless you truly execute it, and not only execute, but execute over a sustained period of time and be consistent over. For me, it's 5 years now with the podcast, but it's the execution plus discipline to get to where you want to go. And I'm reading a book right now. I want to give a huge shout out to Ryan Holiday. He just came out with his book.
He's amazing. He's got quite a list of books. Yeah.
Yeah, he has so many books.
He's
one of
a
my favorite
writer.
authors.
Yeah.
For sure.
That
And
boy
this
is writing, right? I see like every year it's another
crazy.
book or even more. I don't even know. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
I have to
you
look.
put
I'm
to
not
know.
too savvy, but yeah, I want. What's the title of this one? And
Discipline is destiny.
okay, okay,
And I bring up the word discipline and because it's just sort of heavy on my mind right now with reading the book. And
mhm,
it just came out like 2 weeks ago.
okay,
And I just think that, that's the true reality, right? Like we can all want to be in great shape. We like for me, I want to run a marathon. Last year I got injured. I was training for it. And then 3 days ago, I just signed up for this half marathon in Malibu. And yeah, I know my outcome of what I want, and it's just putting yourself in a position to win and having the discipline to do it even when you don't want to,
yeah,
right? So for me, it's I have a trainer that I work out with 3 days a week, and I know firsthand, like by working out with this trainer over the last 3 4 months, my discipline of going to the gym has 10x in terms of not only what gets me there, but how I'm feeling about the gym. And I think that in any small or big fashion, however you can, quantify it in your life, like put yourself in a position to not only have the discipline but to avoid the distractions, right? Like for me, I'm
that's great.
scheduling them, on my calendar multiple days in the gym. I know on Tuesdays I go work out with my buddies, and he has this like workout class on Tuesday. On Thursdays I run, and therefore I know exactly like what I'm going to do, and that's my goal. And then just obviously having the discipline to show up and building those accountability
Yes.
groups, I think has been incredible for me, whether that's a trainer or a group of guys that I work out with on Tuesday. um, I think that's super important, especially if you're just getting started, is to have those groups of people or groups of mentors that you follow online
Yeah.
that you continue to associate with to build discipline with what you want to achieve.
100%. Yeah, and I like that you repeated again the words show up because those are major words. Like it really
Yeah.
takes putting yourself in that position. You going on that plane to go to Ty Lopez, right? And the other, moment that you had where you spoke on the stage. If you show up, a lot of people, it's not everybody, but they'll get that one shot, that Eminem quote, right? But they just don't take it. They just don't show up. And little do they know, just that showing up really changes the fork in the road, right? And really
Yeah.
can kind of open up ways to take it to the next level. So that's absolutely awesome. And I want to ask you too, with the business. So now I understand you started the show. You had all these episodes. You have this network, all these relationships. Just to jump over to here.
Yeah.
Now you got the funding. You raised it. You raised funding for the business Media Kits. Is that correct?
Yep.
Can you touch on what
So
is Media Kits exactly?
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Media Kits it's a SaaS platform that allows creators to create a media kit with real-time data and analytics. So if you're an individual, a podcaster, just a social media influencer, or musician, you can connect all your social platforms directly through the APIs on our platform, and then instantaneously have a beautiful media kit that you can present to a brand. And how this idea came about, it was a multi-year thought process and idea that finally came to reality. And therefore my business partner and I showed up to go along with what you were just
Yeah.
saying to
Yeah.
actually start the company. So
Okay.
back in 2018, just to bring it back and then to why Media Kids came about, um, my business partner Kieran, we had a good friend, his name's Jeff, big automotive YouTuber, JR Garage, and he knew
Okay.
that Kieran and I were in the marketing space. So he came to us and was like, "Hey guys, can you make a media kit for me?" We're like, "Oh, what's a media kit?" And we Googled it and we're like, "Oh, it's like your digital resume for a creator." So we end up making him one on Photoshop or Canva, send it to him, he gets the deal. And then 2 weeks later, he comes back to us and was like, "Hey guys, Ferrari contacted me. They want to fly me down to Daytona Beach, Florida. They asked me for my media kit. Can you go update it and then send it back to me because all of my numbers are outdated?"
Okay.
So after sort of taking a step back, we asked ourselves, why isn't there a way for creators to create a media kit that never gets outdated? And on the flip side, why isn't there a way for brands to view trusted and verified creator data when they're, reviewing these influencers when doing a campaign? So that's when we had the idea. And
Wow.
then, I'm still in high school. I'm starting my podcast. My business partner is starting his first company. So we sort of shelved the idea. And then fast forward to 2020, we're now roommates. We're living in Arizona, and TikTok was really starting to blow up. And we just sort of identified this gap, and we said, hey, creators are being minted overnight. This whole new velocity in the creator economy coming through TikTok is very apparent. Like,
Yeah.
this is a great time to start this company that we had the idea for. So the first 4 or 6 months, we ended up just bootstrapping it, just getting the ideas together, getting the designs together, figuring out what the product would be, just really ideating and moving the ball forward. And
Okay.
then beginning of 2021, this is last year now, we're like, hey, let's go do this. So we went out to go raise a round of funding. We raised $1.5 million within a matter of like 5, 6 months. It was a rolling close, and we could go all in depth about the fundraising process. It was
I
my
was
first
just
time
going to
raising
ask you
capital,
that.
and
Yeah, for
I
those
learned a lot
listening,
through that.
yeah, for those listening, like what's going to be a brief, like the like sentence or so. I don't know how deep you want to go into that. That you did go about to raise funding, because a lot of people don't know how to go about doing this. Was there a particular strategy that you did to be able to go raise and present your company to get funding?
Yeah. So
What
I,
was
I
that
think
process?
I think it's one of two things. Number one is it wouldn't have been possible without a mentor. And one person that I always love talking about and showing love to is a mentor of mine. His name is Aristotle Loomis. He's an incredible a Greek entrepreneur, and he's not only raised hundreds of millions of dollars for his companies, but he's someone that just gets it, and he's a true coach. And I initially met him on my podcast, and then fast forward to when we were raising capital, he really helped shepherd us through the process, like literally from the emails we were writing to reviewing them for us, for writing them for us, and like helping us really get the fundraising process. So that's number one, of like, we had someone phenomenal in our corner that helped us, that's actually been there and done it.
Right.
But secondly, without going in too depth right away, it's one of two things. One, you got to have a great story, and not only a great story, but you got to tell it in a great way.
Yeah.
And I briefly touched on it about JR Garage influencer coming to us, figuring out this problem, but you have to have belief in the problem, tell a great
Yeah.
story, and most importantly,
Essentially a psychology, right? And then you want to really reverse engineer this messaging that you're giving to you, absorbing it so in detail. How do I feel? Is this something that's luring me, right? So it's like really layered. It could get very like kind
yeah.
of like, right? Yeah. I'm
And
hearing.
I think two questions that always came up. We pitched hundreds of venture capitalists, angel investors over the time of raising capital, and like two questions that always came up were, why you and why now? And I think those are two incredible questions. And there's dozens and dozens of questions and things that are maybe more important than these questions, but those two questions I think are very valuable as a founder,
I
to
just
ask
thought of
yourself, like,
Simon
why
Sinek
me?
with the why. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that,
exactly.
yeah, the why is like everything, right? I feel that's interesting that you just went right to
Yeah.
that. Hmm.
Absolutely. And I think, answering those two questions, if you're going out there, whether that's raising capital for a tech startup or a production company or whatever it is, like asking yourself those two questions, I think will give you a lot of introspective to understand, how a potential investor would think about it. Because if you can't have a good answer for why me, it's like someone else is probably out there doing it and they have a clear reason to why they should be solving that problem.
Yeah.
But the fundraising process, it it takes a toll on you, but it's really rewarding. And we were lucky to have an incredible group of like 37 different investors coming to the round.
Oh
And
wow.
then that led to us launching the product last August in 2021. We had a
Okay.
big launch party here in LA. We had Wiz Khalifa come out and perform. We had like 600 creators there.
I saw
Had
the
this epic
diagram.
event.
That's what that was for. Wiz was at the launch. Okay.
Yeah, he was at the launch party. His manager was an investor, Will Dzonbag, who's incredible. And that launch party, it was just go mode from there, right? And I think that fast forward to now, and for context to you and the listeners, we
Yeah.
actually recently got acquired, and we announced it 4 weeks ago.
Wow.
We got acquired by a company, a big marketing tech company out of Toronto called Viral Nation, who's
Okay.
incredible company. Like, they're doing some really, really big stuff in the space, and there's just
Yeah.
phenomenal alignment. And if you asked me 12 months ago, like, hey, would you be getting acquired in, a year ago or a little over a year ago from when you started, like, I would have never thought that. But just truthfully, the timing, the alignment, it just all made sense. And I'm super excited about it. And it's just, excited to be in this excuse me, this transitional period. Our whole team's working at Viral Nation, and we have a lot of work to do over there, but it's definitely an exciting time.
That's awesome. So what's it like now, like when you're acquired? Like what does that mean exactly for you in terms of like the day to day?
Yes. So, as mentioned briefly, so our whole team's at Viral Nation, including myself, my
Yeah.
co-founder, all of our engineers, and we had 8 full-time people working for us.
Okay.
So it's one of two things. One, it's just continuing to move the ball forward and following our product roadmap for media kits. And
Okay.
then on the other side,
Were
and,
you
and
like
for
acquired,
context,
and I'm not the most savviest in this dialogue, let's say, or context, but were you acquired and like, and you still need to be operating within the company for like 5 years? Is there like contingencies attached to that, or nothing you really want to allude to? It's a, personal. I don't,
yeah,
whatever.
no, I mean, I can't talk too like
Yeah, no, I'm
specifics
even
on
just
the deal
curious.
structure,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, no, we're gonna be working there for quite some time, and we just have a lot of work to do, like quite frankly, like in terms of the product
yeah,
roadmap.
yeah,
And they wanted us, like a whole reason why, especially as a founder, that we wanted to be acquired by Broward Nation is because they
yeah.
have incredible resources within their organization that we can tap into. They have a massive talent team. They have a massive marketing
So it was
department.
more of a collaborative like outlook. It wasn't like an exit outlook for you. That's what I'm even.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
okay.
totally.
Yeah, 'cause it's interesting how some of these acquisitions work. Like the guys will be like active CEOs for 5 years or something. Yeah, there's a lot of unique
Yeah.
things. Of course, there's so many different ways it could go. But so that's what it was more looked at as like, okay, this will allow us, give us a lot more capabilities to grow the product, grow the business.
Absolutely. And I think too, like as a first time tech founder, right? Like we everyone hears acquisitions, acquisitions. And I think I'm so grateful to have learned M&A in the process so fast, right? Like we got acquired and signed the deal within 11 months, like just under 12 months. So like to be able to learn all of that so quickly has for me been incredible because I think a lot of founders out there, right? Like these things take time, use 3, 5, 10, 15 years in
Yeah,
whatever capacity if you think about a traditional acquisition. And I think for us and like our whole team, it was just super exhilarating and exciting to transition into this new day to day with these new
yeah,
resources. So yeah, it's been a journey, man. And for everyone listening, right? Like, and you said something that was super impactful to me earlier that I want to highlight is just this wouldn't have happened in such a short amount of time if we didn't show up. Not only just
mm,
show up, on that plane to Ty Lopez's house, but show up on every fundraising call, show up to actually do the outreach, show up for the launch party, show up for our investors, show up for our team, like every single day. I think that, it's so easy to say, oh, I want to start a company, I want to raise money for tech startup, but it's hard work. And it's very cliche to say, and I'm sure everyone knows this, but it's just you got to be committed. And I think that when I always think back to why I've been able to get to where I am in terms of a short period of time in the grand scheme of things is
mm,
just I've been so hyper committed to everything that I do and I've showed up every day. And I think that again, it's just you got to live by that and you got to really figure out what works for you in terms of, day-to-day work, however you want to put it, work-life balance, however. But for me, it's just like obsession, showing up and getting
yeah.
the job done. And I think if you focus on those three things in your own way, you'll be surprised of,
What you'll
where
do.
you can go and what
Yeah.
you can do.
100%. Very well said. So, moving forward, I want to ask you these other questions with respect to your time with this hour as well. What's like the morning routine, just to jump and turn the page a bit for Casey Adams? Is there a pattern to it? Because there's definitely something that goes on in the mornings. I see patterns with individuals like you. Would you say there is?
Yes, I would say now more than ever, actually. And because, I'll be the first one to say I've had morning routines that I do for a while and then I stop doing it. And, you ebb and flow
Yeah.
into what works for you.
Yeah.
And
Are
I'll
you
say
one of
right
those that
now,
in your phones, like in your notes, like constantly editing it? I'm like that sometimes. Like I get, and then some months I'm like faded out. I won't really go crazy, but then I'm like, let me block this again. Let me retry and do this. How do you go about it like this? I'm curious.
yeah, I think it's writing it down in my journal for sure. But keeping it simple to the point where I don't have to write it down, but it's just a natural evolution of my morning.
Mm,
So
you
for
flow with
me,
it. I like
what's what's been the new norm, it's mainly a couple of things. It's usually wake up at 6:30 every day, or 6:15, and then I'm at the gym by 6:30, work out for an hour, 6:30 to 7:30.
that. Mhm.
Um, that's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, just for context for everyone in terms of like gym time, if you want to get
I
very
like that you
specific.
said that before. It stuck with me. I like that you worded it before in a different context. So, like, I run on Thursdays. I like that because I tell myself all the time I'm trying to run like every day or every other day. Maybe that's not even. I don't need to do that.
Yeah,
I don't.
for sure.
But yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm into these
And
things. The
for
routine.
sure.
Yeah.
So like
Okay.
for me, it's always like even on the weekends, it's like I wake up 6:37. But if in terms of like specifics of schedule, it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday workout 6:30 to 7. Tuesdays are a group workout at a friend's house. Thursdays I'm running, and then Saturday I usually run slash do yoga, and then Sunday it's kind of like whatever I want to do. I could do nothing. I could go on a walk. I could go hiking. Like whatever comes
Yeah.
on a day.
Just
Like
you.
I kind
Yeah.
of like play it by ear.
Mhm.
But in terms of morning routines, I'm at the gym 7:30. I come home. I recently got a cold plunge, which is
Oh,
now a
awesome.
huge part of
Awesome.
my morning routine. So, I got to give a shout out to the company, and this isn't like paid or anything, but it's a company called Edge Theory Labs. I'm really good friends now with the founder, and just knowing why he started the company and really what led me to their product and what it's all about, and just
Mhm.
cold therapy, cold plunges.
Yeah.
Um, it's been super exciting to learn more about it. And I do it every morning, right when I get over the gym for 5 minutes, like 48 degrees. And then I take a hot shower, and then I do an additional 3 to 5 minutes in the cold plunge. And then after that, that's when I probably 5, 10 minutes after, that's when I journal and read. Sometimes journaling and reading is 15 minutes, super quick. Sometimes it's 30 minutes. And that's usually for me like non-negotiables, especially when I'm home,
Yeah.
in terms of what my morning looks like. Because I think, and I've tried this many times in different ways, like if I wake up and go right to reading or go right to like
Yeah.
something that's very like still, I could remain tired, and I am like only thinking about, hi, I need to go to the gym. I need to go to the gym. So
Yeah.
for me, like waking up and like getting after it in terms of a physical way, that's really been my go-to that I've loved and learned to love over time, of just like 15 minutes after I wake up, I'm being super active and I'm getting after it.
I love
Um,
that.
but that's usually my like,
Yeah.
again, like my
Yeah.
go-to
So you're up
schedule,
like so
non-negotiables.
yeah, I love that you said the non-negotiables. I love that too. I gotta put that out. So the schedule generally like the 6:30, you're up, you're at the gym, you're back 7:30. Interesting, you go into this plunge, which I really love. I've been reading about Wim Hof and like studying him a bit. Are you familiar with that? I guess you are,
Oh
right?
yeah, for
Super
sure.
cool. I'm like late to it. Super cool stuff. So
Yeah,
then
I got the cold plunge right there.
oh wow, that's crazy. I love the setup, bro.
Boom.
So beautiful. Beautiful view. That's
Thank
awesome. So
you.
you go into it, but I'm interested. So you go into it, then you're getting out, going into a hot shower and going back into the plunge? Into the
Yeah.
is that the
So
right way to do it? I guess.
based on what I have researched and conversations I've had, it's like always end on cold. That's what I've been told. Like that's what you can
Okay.
really maximize the benefits. And it's however you want to do it. If you're out there listening and wanting to do cold
Yeah, it's
therapy,
all
it does
yeah.
make a difference, because like doing the cold plunge, you get out and you're just feeling like a natural dose of caffeine. That's how I like to describe it. And
Ooh,
there's a lot of scientific benefits to metabolism and
yeah.
focus and mental clarity, all these different things. But for me, outside of just this is the science around it, for me, it comes down to one thing. It's start your day with something hard, start your day with something challenging.
Yeah.
And I was saying it this morning. I get in there, and I'm someone that I can go like 5 to 7 minutes, like very easily. That's what I like doing it. Therefore, I built up a tolerance to do that. But it never gets easier, right? Like from the moment of like looking at it, about to step in, to like 15 seconds in, like
Yeah.
that's the real challenge. Like just getting in, and then getting to the point where you've caught your breath and you're in there.
Hmm.
It's like a 15-second, in my eyes, period of discomfort that, I start my day with it every single day. And it just sort of puts me in this mentality of doing something hard for 5 minutes that gets me excited about the day ahead. And again, like, I
Love
think
it.
there's
I love it.
benefits in there, but yeah,
Yeah.
I always try to end on cold because you sort of end on this like high of like a natural energy,
I
which
gotta
I
get one. I
very
gotta
much
get one.
with.
I'll probably go and buy one from the company you said. No, I really love it. And I just had a deja vu moment of Tony Robbins saying something where he does this in the morning and then he has these thoughts. And it's like what you just said, like a 15-second, like a tough moment, but he'll like random, super vivid thought I just had listening to you because I remember him saying he'd think of his daughter's faces or his child's faces or things that brought happiness to him. And he'd be going into that 30-second or whatever moment, however long he does it, like a champion, like I need this discipline. I got really important things to handle and take care of, like my
Yeah.
family, whatever. I just had this moment too, like a thought about that. And I feel that it's awesome. And it's so cool that you do it. I really want to dive into it. It's something that's getting more and more light and popular, which I'm happy because it seems to be really helping people, and it's
Yeah.
it's a big thing.
I love it. I truly do love it. And one thing, just knowing the value that it's brought to me in a short period of time. Like I've had it for like a week and a half and I haven't missed a day. It's like one of those things that just innately worked its way into my schedule because I was excited about it. And I
Yeah.
was telling the founder, I'm like, if it's at the point where I'm buying one, like, that it's becoming more normalized, right? Like if you would have asked me 2 years ago, oh, you're gonna have a cold plunge at your house, like I would never say
Real,
like, no,
right? I
like,
feel
oh, I'm
that.
gonna go to a
Right.
spa and I'm gonna pop
Yeah.
in there like once a
You're
month,
like, what?
maybe.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
No, I love it.
it's great and it's a super cool product. And I know we're on a tangent now, but I think whether that's a cold plunge or something else, like starting your day with something challenging, I think is
That discipline, right? It's almost like in the
great.
army, like they wake you up, like, get up, get up. That really does like change you. It really does.
Yeah,
So after that, after this, you just go about your day, go to work. That's generally what the day is, right? Go to the office, whatever.
yeah. I work from home, so you're looking at the office right now. And yeah, that's
That's it.
usually keep it simple. It's right. I've spent a lot of time at home just working. Like there's nothing more to it than just at home
Yeah,
working,
yeah,
getting it
yeah. It's a
done.
digital world today, right?
Yeah,
That's it. That's it. I got
literally.
the same vibes. I got some office space just for like storage at this point.
Yeah,
After COVID, it's just like I don't even go.
yeah,
But yeah, so let me ask you, and we touched on the book thing, but maybe there's something you didn't mention. I'm curious too. What are like your favorite books? Like I know you're reading the Ryan Holiday. What's something that comes top of mind? Maybe someone doesn't really know. Because the Thinking
yeah,
Grow Riches are awesome, of course.
yeah, for sure.
Mhm. Is there
So
something that pops in? Yeah.
one, so I'm a big fan of biographies. I love, and it sort of matches with my like how I live my life. I love the entrepreneurial story, like first person perspective, or even just like hearing someone's story.
The
That's why I
true
love the
story,
podcast.
that
But
rawness, right?
one book, yeah, one
Mhm.
book that I love. It's the story of Michael Dell, founder of Dell, and the title of the book is called, what is it? Play Nice But Win. And it's just his story about how he started Dell. He was, 18, 19, selling computers and making them faster and adding these different things, and just listening to how he built Dell and the stories within that. Like there's a couple, I won't spoil it for people that want to read it, like the stories of him and Steve Jobs going on these long walks and talking about life. It inspired me. It truly did. So that one was really great. Another book that I love, and just an author I love, and human that I love in general, is Robert Greene. He has a book, 48 Laws of Power,
Okay.
50th Law, 33 Strategies of War. A lot of these books about like human psychology and how humans operate, and they're just they're so powerful. Like even if you read 3 pages, like there's the 48 Laws of Power is a very large book. I even recommend sometimes people like get the shortened down version, because if you just skim through that book, you will leave that reading session a completely different person in terms of how you think about, your day-to-day life, the people around you, how to manage people, just human psychology. And he's someone that I've had on my podcast before, but I'm working on having him on the show
That's
again, just
amazing.
because I think
Mhm.
he's truly like the modern day philosopher And I think that time will uh, continue to emphasize his work over the next, however many decades, because he's very powerful with how he sees the world and how he condenses it into his books.
I think you
And I was
articulate.
listening,
Yes.
yeah, and one thing that I'll
Mhm.
quote to Ryan Holiday. I was listening to a podcast that Ryan Holiday was on recently on the My First Million show, and the way he articulated Robert Greene's writing style. He's like, you can read a lot of books, and sometimes you read a book and you're like, oh, someone could have wrote this in a month, 2, 3 months. In terms of like,
Yeah.
it's very easy to
Catch the
consume,
depth. You
and
can
it's
catch
like,
the density of it in a sense.
yeah, yeah. Versus he's like, you read one of Robert Greene's books that takes him 5 years, and you read 3 pages, and you could say, I see why that took three
Yeah.
months, a year to like
Very well
write that
said.
chapter. And you
Yes.
just feel it. And the way he said that as an author that I respect, I'm like, it's a great way to say it. And I hope people understand it that way, because there's so much truth in that.
That's awesome. Wow. I love the way you just said that. I'm going to go listen to both of those. I like Audible a little bit when I read. I do some reading. I'm more so on the Audible these days, but hopefully they
Okay.
have them. I'm sure they do.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, for
amazing.
sure.
It's amazing. So, lastly, I want to ask you this one last question. And we kind of touched on it in terms of like moments that you felt were a shift. You touched on the brace moment. Is there any other moments that you could maybe, highlight that brought value to you that maybe you could reference? Maybe it was even like a successful moment. But we kind of did touch on these too. So, if not to put you on the spot, if nothing else comes top of mind, it's fine. But just curious if any other, type of moment through your, let's say, career that was such a monumental type experience, whether it was like a hurdle you had to learn how to go around, or
Yeah.
maybe it was a successful moment, as I mentioned, that just brought a clarity to you that you felt was valuable.
Yeah. So there's one that always always comes up like on a weekly basis. So I interviewed Larry King back in 2019, like a
Amazing.
year before he passed away. But the interview that I had with him was like one of the last interviews he ever did at his studio, to the point where like the day he passed away, BBC World News contacted me. I was live on air talking about like how Larry King impacted me. But the story of how I got that interview is fascinating to me, and I hope it inspires someone. And I think it relates to this whole idea of showing up, which I love what you said earlier. So,
You
uh,
said it, man. I highlighted it. I love it. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. I
So
love it.
I interviewed Tillman Fertitta back in 2019, the owner of the Houston Rockets. My buddy Michael Gruen helped me get the interview. He was coming out with a book. And then I wasn't living in LA at that time. And then Tillman had a dinner with like 25, 30 different people that were helping promote his book. And
Okay.
it was at his restaurant, Mastro's in Beverly Hills in Los Angeles, 30 people there. I ended up going, showing up to it. It's
Mhm.
awesome opportunity. And I ended up meeting that night Chance King, who's Larry King's son. I didn't know him at the time. He was going around the room and having everyone introduce themselves. And I remember Tillman going, like, Chance, it was such a pleasure being on your father's show today. Like, he's,
Wow.
one of
That's
the greats.
yeah.
And I'm like, kind of clicked, and I'm like, oh, that's really, I love that, and I would love to meet Chance. I'm an interviewer, podcaster. Larry King's always been this inspirational figure in my life as just someone
Legendary.
that's so great at their craft.
Yeah.
So we ended up meeting, hitting it off. The following weekend, I was having an event in Los Angeles that I was hosting with a couple awesome entrepreneurs like Rob Deerdeck and Drama and founder of
Oh, cool.
Evolve. And I did this cool like entrepreneur speaking event, and Chance ended up coming to it. Like, we became good friends. And the one thing I wanted to highlight in this story was like sometimes you don't know the opportunities that are in front of you, and you just gotta again show up for them. So
Yeah.
this was like a week after I meet Chance, and I'm at the Century City Mall here in Los Angeles, and I'm walking around the corner, and just little did I know, Larry King just strolls right past me in his wheelchair with like two or three people.
Wow.
And it was one of those moments, and I'm sure we've all been there, where you have this feeling you can't really describe. It's like this feeling of like potential regret, but also inspiring action, where it's like should I go up to that
Act
person and
on that.
introduce
Yeah.
myself? Should
Yeah.
I ask, like in all those moments where like, should I go introduce myself? Should I go
Yeah.
open the door, like run across this and like tell someone they dropped their purse, but I'm focused on my own thing. Like all
Yeah.
the
That
moments,
mental
like let me
freeze.
go do this because this will lead to a positive outcome, but there's like fear within that.
Yeah.
Um, like I remember that moment so vividly where he strolled by me. I took like 15 seconds, and I'm like, all right, I gotta go say hello. Walk up to him. He's an older guy. He's with three people. I don't want to
Yeah. Yeah.
inconvenience him, but I just like let him know. I'm like, hey, like, such a pleasure to meet you. I met your son Chance like a week ago, and I just wanted to introduce myself, say hello. Like, thank you so much for what you do. I've had a podcast and an interview show for years. Just want to say you inspire me. And we end up getting the picture. I texted Chance, and we're just chatting. He's like, oh, it's so great, like so funny. And long story short, I remember it was like Thanksgiving Day 2019, almost 3 years ago now. And Chance and I are staying in touch. I brought up briefly to him before about like would love to have his down on the show. He was coming out of a stroke. He wasn't doing that many interviews. But then Thanksgiving Day, we were chatting. He was like, "Hey, like, I brought the idea back up to my dad. He said he'd love to do it. Like, let me know when you're gonna be in LA in the
That's
next
crazy.
2 weeks, and like would
Yeah.
love to do it." And then end up doing it. And I just remember sitting in front of Larry King in his like incredibly famous studio and just
Mhm.
having a conversation with someone that has done not only 60,000 interviews, but he's interviewed every previous president in history when he was alive, and just someone that's experienced so much life and conversation. Like for me, that was such a moment in my career, not only just because of the interview, but because of the sequence of events
Yeah.
that had to play out first. And what I want to end on, and even for myself, it's like you never know the events that you have to go down for an opportunity to come up, right? Like, and one of my favorite quotes by Steve Jobs is, you can never connect the dots looking forwards, always looking backwards. And that's like a very brief version of the quote.
Yeah.
But I think that's how I try to live my life. Like you have to show up, you have to put in the work, you have to like say yes to opportunities that you believe feel right without, of course, getting distracted. But the biggest moments of my life, like media kits in the 3 year period of not doing anything about the idea to
Yeah.
then having the opportunity present itself with the timing and the network to then go raise the money to
A hundred
to
percent.
launch the company, to sell it within a year. Like all those things didn't happen because that was my grand vision, right? I
Yes.
was
Yes.
saying yes to opportunities and putting in the effort and the action and showing up every single day that creates the opportunities and the successes overall. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I've learned from all the people I've interviewed is just
Yeah.
those type of people. They show up, they don't quit, and they deal with uncertainty very well, because the reality is in business
Very well
everything's
said. Yeah. Yeah.
uncertain, right? Like you're starting a company, you're starting a show. It's the you can no nothing's
They're
guaranteed.
comfortable with that uncertainty, right? They're comfortable with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know Sam
so
Ovens? Have you ever heard of Sam Ovens?
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
he's awesome. And I remember one thing I've read from him or learned from him. He speaks about like second order consequences. Are you aware of this? Yeah, you're with this. And it's literally what you're
A little
touching
bit.
on. Like, yeah, like negativity. Like, if you, very simple, logical, if you do something bad, the byproduct of that is probably something else that's bad. You smoke, you get sick, right? And it's very much so in the other way, too. Like you just said, you never know that other variable. It could be black or foggy, the Larry King moment. Like you're never gonna like expect that that's like step by step by step. I'll be with Larry King. But if you do good and you stay focused, rather very disciplined, the showing up, right? It's a constant consequence that are going to be positive. And the next one, you don't know. It's a black question mark, right? It's like
Yeah.
a secret character you're going to unlock in a video game, but it's going to be an amazing next moment, because that's what the byproduct of what you're doing is, right? So it's amazing. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
wanted to highlight that. You should look into the Sam Ovens consequence thing. I feel like that's
will do.
line. And he details it very much so with that. But awesome, man. And I want to thank you so much for the time. I appreciate you so much, man. You have such a great energy. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm so happy that we connected today. And again, really do appreciate you coming on.
Of
All
course,
right.
thank you so much for having me on, Michael. This has been so much fun, and I really enjoyed it, so thank you so much again.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to connect again with you. I want to keep this energy floating with you. I love it. All right, my man.
Absolutely. Let's keep it
Let's
going.
keep up all the amazing stuff. All right. With respect to the
Thank
times, I know
you.
you have stuff to do. We'll do another episode maybe in the future. We could dive in
For
on more
sure.
stuff. All right.
And let me know however I can help. Let me know, like different guests on the show.
I wanted to ask you
Being
that too.
on.
I swear, like, because you
Yeah,
touched on how you went about the Larry King, but let's say you maybe hold it, because I'd love to have you on again. I know in 6 months, it's 12 months, you're going to be doing something awesome, whether it's even sooner than that. And
for
outside of the
sure.
show, let's connect. I'm sure there's a lot of
Yeah,
amazing things we could, get going.
absolutely.
All right, my man. Keep up all the
Perfect.
amazing stuff. I'm watching, I'm following, and I'm supporting with the Billionaires Club. We have a rather big audience. Tap into us. It's yours.
Yeah,
We're here to work and
absolutely.
collab. All right, brother.
Will do, brother. Thank you
All
so
right.
much. I
Take
appreciate
care.
it.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Alrighty.
Thank you,
You
Casey.
as well.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you for watching this episode. We upload a new episode every Friday at 5 p.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. We as well greatly appreciate those that have subscribed to the channel. We appreciate the love and the support. Lastly, if you've missed last week's episode, tune into the episode right here.